I think these were probably later in the 90s, was the Aliens versus Predator game.
Oh yeah, those games are great.
Which is great because you had two predators,
right,
and you had two humans, and nobody ever picked a human. Nobody ever.
Oh, no. I picked the guy who was called. I think they actually called him Dutch.
Dutch.
Yeah, I don't know if he was the Dutch, but he was a Dutch.
I don't remember anyone ever picking the girl, but I do remember the two predators, and it was great because each predator was distinct. One of them was like I think one of them was like a hunter predator.
Yeah.
And then the other one was I think a warrior predator. But they each had like unique moves.
Mm-hmm.
Like I know the hunter, I think the warrior had a staff, had the staff, and I think the hunter I think he just fought with his claws.
Right.
But I know the claw guy had this kind of special attack where he threw those blades. He threw two of those blades around himself, like they swung around kind of like boomerangs, which was great when you got swarmed.
It was like from Predator 2.
From Predator 2, yeah. And then I know the warrior one, his staff, he would kind of like spin it, so it'd also do like an AOE attack. But I remember those being great, and I remember losing a lot of quarters on that too because that game was so hard. Like they do so many aliens at you, and it was crazy because it was cool. It was crazy, and it was cool at the same time because you had like these different variety of aliens, and I think these were kind of a step up from the more classic brawlers because they had different enemies. They had different. Each enemy had its own unique attack, so you couldn't just punch everything. You kind of had to like. There were certain aliens you had to like jump kick or you had to kind of like really dodge their projectile, and then it was great because then it was great if you were the humans because they'd eventually introduce the power loaders.
Mm-hmm.
So like the humans can jump into power loaders, you can beat up a queen. But I remember that being a really good licensed series, and then of course our favorites, the really impossibly hard shooter games, the Terminator 2 and the Aerosmith Revolution X, where you shot CDs, which is ridiculous. But I remember Terminator 2 being really hard.
Terminator 2, really...
The arcade game was impossible.
Yeah, really impossible. I've never seen it beaten. My friend, like from Kansas, his name was Tim Bauer. He said he went to a bowling alley. He said that they were on the verge of like actually beating the game. I guess it's T-1000. You kind of have to shoot him, and then he like flies back into a section where he's near that steel mill like lava pit or whatever, and you basically have to use like the grenade launcher portion of your gun to kind of push him towards that pit.
So you stun them with your regular bullets and then use the grenades. Yeah, too.
Like they were really close in beating that game. And then it caught on fire somehow.
The arcade cabinet
caught on fire, and like the one of the bowling alley guys like had to come in there with a fire extinguisher, and like he's like, trying to put it out, but he couldn't get it to work. And my buddy Tim was like, "You gotta." He just put his hand on because he forgot to take out the pin, so he pulled the pin out, and like they just like.
He couldn't get the extinguisher. Which is. I imagine something like that, though. I mean, was that a cabinet that's kind of been there for a while?
It was there for a while. I mean, it was like many years after it was released and stuff.
So it was probably really dusty, and them playing it probably something got heated up.
Yeah, my friend had like the worst luck with that kind of thing. He almost beat Ninja Gaiden 1, like straight, without any kind of like assistance, and then the power went out in his house.
Oh, that sucks. Yeah. And Ninja Gaiden 1 that was like. We owned that one, and I hated that goddamn game because it was so hard. Like
I thought it looked beautiful. I liked the story.
It looked great. I mean, that opening cutscene. I mean, as 8-bit graphics were, it was great, but it was also a pain in the ass to play.
Yeah, and like when you get to the last guy, it pushes you back all the way to the beginning of the level, which I thought was bullshit. So Palladium came out with this game called Robotech. Robotech, of course, it's based on the cartoon. I don't want to say anime because it's kind of technically not an anime because Robotech was basically 3 different anime series that were sort of recut and like dubbed into English, and it was sort of its own story, apart from the anime it was based on. So Palladium got together with the guy who actually brought over Robotech for the U.S., Carl Masick. Kevin Siemba, I think, is the guy who actually authored the book. Have you ever watched Robotech?
I watched a few episodes here and there. I'm
Right.
not much of a mecha fan.
Mecha fan?
I tried getting into like Eva and.
It's the only way I can explain it is like it's kind of like a little bit of Star Wars. It's got a little bit of Gundam. It's got a love triangle, but it's like just these weird combinations of different like space opera elements, and they kind of created this really weird story about these giant aliens called Zentradi invading Earth, and they previously like a giant ship just kind of crashed on Earth, and like humans rebuilt it to become like the SDF-1.
They like reverse engineer.
Yeah.
They reverse engineer the alien tech to make these mechs.
Yeah, which is a giant transforming ship mech.
So it's only one. It's only one mech.
Well, it's like the mothership is actually a mech, and it has these like little fighters that are transformable as well. They can transform in Battloid, which is humanoid form, or Guardian, which is like part plane with like legs, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
And then they can transform to a jet mode. You know, to top it all off, the actual mech, the mothership can transform and shoot this thing called the reflex cannon, which is this just powerful weapon that can just obliterate everything in its path.
And you said this is what the humans control?
Yeah, that's what the humans control. And I guess the idea is that the Zentradi want to capture it to unlock their origins or something like that. On top of that, the Zentradi don't know the concept of love. They don't know pop music. And so there's like a pop music aspect of it. This girl named Lin Min Mei.
I think I need to start watching Robotech.
So Kevin Siemba got together with Carl Masick, who was the original guy who brought it over. And they kind of researched everything about the show and put it in these books. And so if you're a fan, it's kind of like you don't need to be a role-playing game addict to enjoy these books. You can actually come by a fan aspect because they get into like history and how the technology was developed and how it works. And like they also have a game where you can like create your own. They're called Veritech fighters. Mm-hmm. They're the people who pilot the mechas. And you can develop a story around them and like basically have your own adventures in the Robotech universe. You know, again, it is kind of a counting role-playing game, but this is the counting role-playing game I actually enjoy because it feels like I'm a part of this universe.
So it's a lot of fan service.
Yeah, it's a lot of fan service. But yeah, that's the kind of thing that you need to do. And speaking of that, transitioning to that, I have this board game called Firefly, the board game. It's made by a company called Gale Force Online. It's a really great game. The credo of the game is find a crew, find a job, keep flying, and that's what you do in the game. You can pick a captain of a starship, of a Firefly class starship. You don't have to be just Mal. You know, you can be some of the other captains that they introduced through the season of the television show. The idea is that like you have different jobs to do. You have to earn money. You have to pay your crew. You have to fly around the universe, avoid Reavers, avoid the government, the Federation, I guess.
The Alliance.
The Alliance, there we go. Survive combat situations, survive missions. And there is actually a main mission that you can do. And it's a really fun game. The thing is that it's a really dense game too, but once you figure it out, you're just like, oh, this makes a lot of sense. And here's the craziest thing. I am not the biggest fan of Firefly, the television show. I love Serenity, the movie. Like, some people might like crucify me for that. But Firefly, the television show, I kind of watched, and it's like I already saw Serenity, the movie, and kind of got a really good payoff from that. Mm-hmm. And I'm watching Firefly, and it's like, it's okay for a television show, and maybe if I saw it back in the day, I would have liked it more. Like, you don't even have to be a fan of Firefly to enjoy this game. If you're a fan of like a Wing Commander Privateer or Free Space or anything like that, but it's the same concept, and it's really fun to play with others too.
I wanted to touch upon what you had said at the beginning, which is it's a very dense game. I know that's something kind of a huge entry barrier for a lot of people for board games, especially anything role playing or like you said, Robotech, something that's like an accounting game.
Yeah,
is the huge barrier is it's getting through the rules, having somebody to explain, understanding the rules, and kind of getting it all together and understanding it and following the rules, but also knowing how everything falls into place as far as how... I know that was a barrier for me at the beginning when we started playing Arkham Horror. Yeah. But what was great is, we had Chuck and Dice to explain things.
Right.
Now, is there anything you would recommend... Well, let's say somebody doesn't have someone to introduce them to a game like that.
Right.
Is there anything you could recommend people as far as any tips as far as that barrier of something being really dense, but can also be really fun.
Like tip wise, like everyone does an online review of a game, but like some people do these in-depth reviews of like how to play the game, which is actually really helpful. And I'm sure you could actually find one for Firefly. If you really want to know how to do it, it's fun to like just watch a YouTube channel that just kind of presents it in a way that you can understand it. That's one way of doing it. The other way of doing it is maybe paring down some of the rules. I mean, there are some, I would say, essential rules in Firefly, but then there are some things where it just gets really complicated.
I know when we were playing Arkham Horror, we had that one rule where every card that had a certain symbol or a certain symbol or a certain shade, color, during the Mythos phase, that card had to be, you had to play those rules. And I know that became really tedious in our playthrough. So we ended up scratching that rule.
Right. That is the end. Just to let you know, we are using different sound equipment, and hopefully we sound a little bit better. And as days go by, maybe we'll improve upon that, because we're still kind of just yelling into one mic.
Yeah.
But I think in due time we can invest a little bit more to make the podcasts a little bit better. Also, my apartment decided to turn into a nightmare, and my fire alarm has some weird malfunction.
So we apologize for that.
We apologize for that, and we had this torrential wind that just kind of came in
and just went away.
And all the airplanes have landed.
But thanks for listening, and make sure if you want to hear more of us, we have, like I said, we have the first episode up on YouTube. It's right now it's under Chuck and Dice's channel, which is great because then we can reach all the other people he's got there for board games and things like that.
All 20 of you, and basically all
my goal
10 of you that actually listen.
Yeah, my goal is to hit maybe 25 by the end of
by
the end of the year. Maybe.
Okay.
I mean, 3 of those will probably be my kids. I sign up for. But yeah, thanks for listening, and like I said, go to YouTube, catch the other episode, and let us know what you think. Besides calling us idiots and
no, you can call us idiots.
Oh, you can call it idiots. Besides the usual comments of racial slurs and homophobia on YouTube, let us know. Let us know if there's something you guys want us to talk about. There's a board game, there's a license, anything you guys want us to talk about, we'll check it out. And we'll catch you next time.
Or we'll file it away into the
special file cabinet.
cabinet.
The trash can, right?